Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Everyday Bonsai. I was going to talk about a tree that has been in my collection for about 3 years. It's a fairly old one. It's a juniper procumbens nana, and I am finally in a position where I have to make some radical decisions to actually make it a better tree. So yeah, some radical things to be done to it, and yeah, let me show you through. So this is the tree here. It's about 35 years old, and it's a really beautiful tree. As I said, I got it about 3 years ago. It was in really bad condition at the time. Half of the tree had kind of died off. So lots of dead branches, dead twigs in it, not any light getting into the tree, so that didn't allow it to have a happy life. I've since cut it back quite a bit. I got all the dead twigs and branches out. I put it in a better position because it was growing against the wall, and that's why half of the tree at the back of it died off. I fed it quite nicely, and now it's coming out for the kind of third, I think, oh no, the second year, with all sorts of nice healthy growth. There's most of it is still the kind of juvenile foliage. Some of it is the adult foliage, which you can see there, the kind of longer leafed ones, and the spikier ones are the juvenile growth. So, but that's a normal thing for junipers. They do that when they are stressed, or when they have just been, generally when they are stressed. So stress as far as not healthy is concerned, or stress as far as heavy pruning is concerned, then they kind of really revert back to their juvenile foliage. But it's a beautiful tree in general. It's got this amazing nebari. It's got an amazing branch structure, really sweet old bark already, and it's about, I'd say it's about 15 centimeters across from here to here, the nebari, and the trunk base, the thickness here is about maybe about 5 centimeters along here. And I think I'm just going to take it inside now on a workbench so I can spin it around and show you what I'm going to do to it. So I'll put the tree on these blocks in order to give it the right planting angle. I think once I've done the work to it that I wanted to do, this should be the next kind of planting angle that it should come into once I do the repotting next year. So I just try to work with it this way. The problem that I had over the years is that it was really hard to make a design decision, and a tough decision, because it's such a nice old tree, and I kind of really like the semi-cascading nature of it. The problem is that the branches, even after wiring, you can see this branch here, for instance, it attaches to the back of the tree almost at the trunk line, and then it kind of goes out backwards that direction, comes up, comes towards me, and then it comes towards me that way. So it's this really long, lanky branch that even after wiring and even after the wire had been bitten in badly, the branches did not stay in that shape, and it's never going to happen that way, because they're just too lanky and too long and too floppy, really. And that is the thing with this branch. Also with this branch that's coming towards you here, it's kind of coming towards me, and then it's coming out, coming up, turning around, and then this is the the foliage pad from it, and that comes from here. And it's the same thing, really long and lanky and floppy and bouncy. And then lastly, the last one is kind of the one that builds this whole kind of foliage underneath here. So the ones that's furthest out. That's the same thing. It's a bit more stable, but altogether it kind of took me about 5-6 hours to wire the whole tree, and it is very tedious, very time consuming, and as I said, the most frustrating thing is that the foliage just basically bounces back after you take the wire off. And so I had it in a much more compact state when I did the wiring, that I kind of bunched it all a bit up further, and I think it is better. But the other thing, other than the bouncing back of the branches, is that the branch structure gets really convoluted, and it's just really not the nicest branch structure anymore. So finally I think I made the decision to take all of this off, take this one off, take that one off, take that one off, and just basically I might just put a towel on top so that you can see what that's going to be like. So I take all of this stuff off and basically just focus on this main trunk line too, because the trunk line is kind of splitting up at this point, and it's kind of equal thickness, but I just wanted to gin this part here to make kind of deadwood out of it, and then take these ones off. But my idea is, because they are kind of nice and old branches in themselves, I basically wanted to air layer them. So I just put that towel on top and show you what I mean. So this is gonna, all of this is gonna come off, and then I'm only gonna focus on that part. And I think there's so much in here, and there's so much, so many branches in here, and so much nice branch structure, that I can easily, with a few modifications, turn this into a much nicer tree. The other thing that is really appealed to me is that this trunk base, once I've taken all of this off, will just appear even more powerful and even bigger, because the whole tree is then smaller. But in general, I think it's going to be a nicer tree. So this is the back of the tree, and this is probably the easiest way to show you. With this one is the best branch towards the camera, so I'm just going to use the back of the tree with this branch for it. And what you need for the air layering process is basically a sharp knife. So this is a grafting knife, but you can use a box cutter. Just has to be really sharp and really clean. So I just I treated this with alcohol, so to disinfect it. That's number one. Then I just need some wire, and I just use some really thin aluminium wire, so I think that's 1 mil. You need some plastic, and this is just cut off from a akadama bag. It can be any kind of plastic. Some people say it's better to use black plastic, because then it creates more heat, or like really dark plastic foil at least. I have found that because the junipers in general air layer and are so easy to take cuttings from, or air layers, that it doesn't really matter what you use. I've used clear plastic and that worked fine. Yeah, it can really be anything. And the last thing is basically sphagnum moss, which you can get at any garden center, and it grows here in New Zealand. People all over the world imported from New Zealand, so it's here it's quite easy to get. And I've kind of soaked it in water overnight so that it is ready to be used. And what it does is it obviously soaks up a lot of water and creates a really fantastic base for the plants to root in. I'm just going to show you the air layering process now. So at this branch here, you basically, what you do is you want to keep away from the trunk line a bit. I mean, not necessarily, but it's just nicer to have something to work with later for a gin that I want to create for deadwood. So I kind of, because I've got enough length here, I'm just going to keep away about 2 centimeters from the main trunk. And what I do is, with a very sharp cut, I kind of cut all the way around it, so kind of ring bark the tree. It's a bit hard to do it in one go, but try my best. And you're basically just cutting through the bark, through the cambium layer, all the way into the hardwood. And once you've done that all the way through, you want to make sure that you cut into the hardwood and not leave any cambium intact, because then what the tree does is it tries to bridge over that, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is we basically want to ring bark it. So I do the same thing at a point here, another 2 centimeters or an inch or whatever, cut all the way into the hardwood. And once I've done that, I cut across, and what I can then do is I basically just peel off that layer all the way across, so leave no gaps. And so it's a bit hard to get it loose. So what the tree does now with the sphagnum moss around it, once I've put the sphagnum moss around it, is it will form, it'll take a while. It's now the best time to do it, because now the tree is has just started putting new growth on. It will then send out new roots at this point here, and once it's done that and it's grown into the sphagnum moss ball that I'm forming around here, you can kind of see it, and that's why it's good to have clear plastic, I find, compared to dark or black plastic, is you can actually see the roots once they're forming, and you don't have to fiddle around with it and check all the time. Once it's done that and the roots are really nice and strong, which I expect to be maybe 2 or 3 months, so what is it now? It's kind of getting towards end of September, so it's kind of, yeah, towards the end of the year really, once when I hope that would have happened. So what I do now is I take a bit of the plastic off, kind of see how much I need. And then you put some of the sphagnum moss on this plastic bag. And yeah, so one thing is you can use rooting hormone, and it comes, I use this Yates Clonix, but you can use a powder or a this one is a gel, and I usually just apply it to the area where the roots are supposed to be forming, here at this edge. On the other hand, I have found in the past where I haven't used the Clonix or any rooting hormone, that especially junipers, they air layer so easily that it works without it as well. So, but just for good measure, I do it as well. Maybe it helps. So then you just put this this layer of sphagnum moss around it. Make sure that it is a continuous layer, and wrap it around it fairly tight. Not too tight, but fairly tight. Then you just use a piece of wire. And wrap that around it. Do that with the other side as well. And then I usually just leave the ends as well and don't cut them off too badly. This one is a bit too long, but just so that it's easier to remove when you want to remove it in a few months' time. And yeah, so I'm just going to do that with the other two as well. And then I'll show you once it's done. So I've done it with all three branches now. That was the one that I showed you before. And then that one is the longer one, that is all of this foliage here. And the one at the back is the one that is all of this foliage here too. So yeah, it's a very straightforward process, and it's a great way of kind of not just saving the foliage for cuttings, because as I said, junipers do so well from cuttings, but also this, I mean, it's basically creating 4 trees from one, isn't it? So I've got my donor tree, which is going to be that one, and obviously it's going to be repotted next year as well to get into a more suitable pot, probably more like a round pot. And then these ones here, I believe they are going to be some really interesting literati material, because they are long and lanky and very bendable still. So yeah, always a very worth process. Last thing I wanted to show you is just about air layering again, that I've done last year, and I've done it too late. But I've figured out sometimes that's, or it's actually never been a problem for me. So too late basically means I've done it too late in summer, late end of summer, early August, when I think they might still take, but they did not. So there's another juniper here, which is a Pfizer juniper, and it's also just coming into leaf now, or into new growth. And I've done it with this branch here, with this really long one, and interestingly, that is the one branch out of all of them which has put on most of the growth. When I checked just in autumn, it hadn't put any roots out, but I expect it's going to do it now with the new growth. And I've had that happen to me other times before, that it was too late. But then what happens is that you just wait for another year for the next growing season, and then it's putting out roots then. So not a problem. And I had the same thing with another maple tree that I'm using as a donor tree. I'm going to show you that as well. So maples are also super easy to air layer. That one was also done a bit too late and hadn't put any new roots out then, but now it's coming out with new growth, and I expect that to be done in another 2 months as well. Yeah, I've created some really nice trees from those air layers as well last year. And in general, maples and junipers do really well from air layering. Just as a last point, all trees basically that propagate from cuttings also propagate from air layerings. The trees that don't do very well are all kind of pines. I've tried that before and it wasn't successful. Other people have been successful with it, but it's no matter what, it's very difficult. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope that was interesting and you learned something from it. As always, please like and subscribe. That'll help me out and allows me to put out more content. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.